you guys, it's Rachel here with Sensitive Kind of Corso. Hey, jokers. I'm here with the gang. Cashmere is in her kennel because she's in full-blown heat. You know, you can hear her crying in there. Cashmere, be quiet! And I don't want, it's a pretty messy affair. They bleed a lot, so I don't want that all over the house. So I have her in her kennel because that's, what we do. Psst, velocity. Quit. So anyway, so I told you guys that I was going to go more in depth into the whole hip thing, and I wanted to take the time to do that today. So just to give you guys, a better understanding of what I mean whenever I say that she has a loose hip. So first we're going to start off with these hips. These are Velocity's hips. Okay. If you can tell here, but what we're looking at here is this. We're looking at the distance here and here. We have nice, really tight formation. There's good coverage from here around, okay? These here are Midnights. Now I will say that the positioning on these really isn't ideal. The pelvic isn't straight, and ideally you would judge it off these, and so you would bring them in actually closer, and this bone here would actually be in here evenly. But nonetheless, these are still good hips. We've got good coverage, and they're nice and tight, and they're deeply seated in the socket. That's what we're looking for. Now over here, we've got Blondie's, and Blondie's hips are not as good, and the way that you can see that is right here. Do you see how this hip is actually almost seems to be floating outside of the socket? Okay, it's not seated into the actual, what's called the femoral head. It's not in there. So this one here is, but even as such, I don't know if you can tell, but it's just not quite formed right. It's like, they're just not ideal. And I think even there might even be something going on. Oops, sorry. Over here knocking the phone around. There might be something going on right here. I'm not sure. The vet actually said that there was no signs of degenerative joint disease, which is called DJD. So there was no sign of that. And this breed is known for having loose hips, and by loose, what we mean is they fit loosely in the joint instead of tightly like this one, or like this one. These, I should say, or like these. Very tight hips. He said that Velocities were the best, and that Midnights were second. We'll see what the actual scoring is, but hey, you guys, quiet down. But nonetheless, that's what it is. Now, he did tell me that with where she's at, that ultimately her being kept at a good weight and stuff, that she may not actually show any signs or symptoms of having which is basically what we're dealing with here is possible arthritis, right? God, I keep hitting the phone. I'm sorry. So anyway, that she may not end up having any issues. She literally may not. And if she doesn't, then that's awesome. Even if she does, it'll probably be whenever she gets older. Midnight or Blondie, don't. She's trying to dominate. And so anyway, I mean, it's not the end of the world. I'll show you guys when I get her score back, when I know what her actual number is. I'm going to go through and I'm going to show you guys, because I really don't think that her number is actually going to be that bad. I think that it is going to be bad for breeding, and I think that it's going to be bad, but I don't think it's going to be bad in contrast with the breed itself, right? I think that the breed itself is actually, they generally have, looser hips. And I speculate that that there are people that would probably even consider her hips to be acceptable. A lot of people have asked, how is it that Preacher having such great hips and Cashmere having such great hips that they would produce a puppy that would have a loose hip? Well, if you research on hip dysplasia, typically when you do see it, most of the time it is in one hip and it's in the left hip. And while there is no actual genetic marker for hip dysplasia, I do believe that it's just hard to believe that it's not genetic. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where all of these dogs were raised the same way. And those of you that have been watching for a long time know that Velocity was with this litter growing up from a very young age. She even nursed off Cashmere a little bit. So it's just, they were all in the same environment, all in the same diet, all in the same exercise, and yet one of them has an issue. And statistically speaking, it is an issue that has that can reoccur and has reoccurred in many different breeds, but in particular this one and in that left hip. So the reason why I think that it's genetic and why I think it keeps popping up is because of a practice called breeding up. It's a practice that a lot of very highly respected breeders utilize. Hey, shh, quiet down. Liberty. Hey, you guys, quiet down. Stop. Shh. They're in there doing a little puppy war. And so I actually got in a big argument with a well-known breeder over this, and a friend of hers, where they had a female that they had championed through AKC, and they had her hips tested, and it turns out that she had hip dysplasia. And there's a difference between having a loose hip and having hip dysplasia. When a person says you have hip dysplasia, what it means is that there are already signs of damage, of degenerative joint disease. That's what it means. So they had this female that at a young age, 2-3 years old, was already suffering from joint disease. And because she was an AKC champion, they bred her. And what they did is they did this thing that they call breeding up, which is where you breed the female or the dog that is affected with a dog that has a really high hip score. And the way they see it is that you're improving on the genetics because you've bred in this dog that has great hips into the line. But the truth is, in the same way that you've possibly bred up, you've also bred down, because you've brought in a dog that has hip dysplasia into your line. It's all about how you look at it, right? Your glass is either half empty or half full. So the idea that you can somehow bring the genes up or benefit the line by bringing a dog in with good hips, sure, I mean, of course it's better than breeding to a dog without good hips. However, the question then becomes is, should you have even bred that female in the first place? Wouldn't it have been better if you would have chosen a dog that had good hips and bred a female with good hips to a male with good hips? And ultimately the reason people don't is because they invest so much money into their dogs. Money and time and emotion. Emotion is another big one. A lot of people get so emotionally attached to their dogs that they don't want to make the decision of having to bring another dog in, especially if you have limited space, limited resources, and you don't have the ability to keep a bunch of dogs like me, then you're going to have to possibly what we call pet that dog out. And petting a dog out means taking a dog that was going to be used for breeding or show and finding a pet home for that animal. And a lot of people can't do that. It's hard for them. So that's why that kind of stuff happens it's just behavior that unfortunately shouldn't happen, but it does happen. And because I haven't been breeding these dogs forever, I'm not responsible for these dogs' lines any more than a generation right now. So I can't, be held responsible for what has happened in the past. But what I can do is make sure that as I breed, that I don't allow that I don't make those allowances. And that's why Blondie will not be bred, and she will be spayed using an ovary saving method. And we'll talk more about that later. But I just wanted to show you guys. I'm going to go to bed now. It's late. I hope that you guys are having a good Saturday. I know it's late. Like I said, I'm fixing to head to bed myself, but I did want to cover this topic before I go to bed because I told you guys I would, and I need to, so that everybody knows what's going on. I'm a very honest person. I'm not going to lie and tell you, and hide these kinds of things. I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to show you. That's why, hey, you guys, no. That's why whenever I first saw Blondie's movement, I made sure to bring it up. Because for me, I would rather say so myself than have somebody else have to bring it up, I would rather know and say it and have other people know that they can trust me to be honest about my dogs. So that's a big reason why I made sure to publish these results. A lot of breeders won't do that. Heck, a lot of breeders don't even health test. But you know what? There's no way to know. I guessed. I will say that if I would have guessed, I would have been right, obviously. I didn't want to breed Blondie, as many of you know. I was only willing to have her tested because so many other people wanted a puppy off of her. But ultimately, Midnight was my choice and Velocity, and I was right about them. But despite that, I still say that you should health test because you don't know that you're right unless you check. You just don't know. You can guess, but you don't know. Psst, hey, psst, quiet down. Quit. Got my little puppy fight club going on over here. Jeez. Psst, quit. I don't want to walk up with the camera and all that because then they're just going to want my attention and all that. And I need to do this video. They'll start crying and stuff. You can't give them attention when they're acting up. But anyway, but nonetheless, I also think it'll be a great opportunity for you guys to be able to see a dog that does have this issue and to see how she matures and to see how we take care of it. Because, more often than not, complications from loose hips has more to do with keeping more weight on a dog than you should, or muscle atrophy. So you're not getting the dog enough exercise to have enough muscle strength to be able to support the hip. There's a fine line between wearing a dog out and actually giving the dog exercise enough to be able to support itself. So, we're going to be doing a lot of water exercise, things like that with her. We are going to limit the amount of overexertion she does as far as trying to keep up with Midnight, because the truth is she cannot keep up with Midnight. And even if she can, she's probably going to hurt herself getting there. So there's no point in it. So we will be modifying her exercise routine to ensure that she doesn't overdo it, but we're not going to just put her on a couch. You know what I'm saying? Like, she needs to still be active. She needs to still be using her body. And we will make sure that when we spay her, that we use the ovary saving spay so that she retains her hormones and is able to maintain her metabolism and her muscle tone, which are very important for maintaining the weight and the hip health of a dog that has a looser hip than normal. Having said that, I will love to hear what her score is because, like I said, on average, my dogs have pretty dang tight hips. Preacher's hips are in the top 5% of the breed. I did compare them with Midnight and Velocities, and I'm going to go ahead and say it. They're probably very close. So for, Preacher's was like 0.27. Well, the median, I want to say, for this breed is like 0.5. So there's a big difference in looseness between what Preacher has and what's considered acceptable in the breed, which is why I said that there are people that would probably say that Blondie's hips shouldn't exclude her, because even though she has a loose hip, it's probably not so loose that it would be an issue. However, I am not going to breed her because I have a much higher standard for what I want to breed in my lines. I want to have a higher standard. I think that we have enough genetics out there to do that right now, and that's going to be what I do. I don't like her movement, and I'm not going to breed anything that I don't have 100% faith in. She's got a great temperament. She'll stay here with us. I love her to death. She's not going anywhere, but we're not going to be breeding her. And so now you guys know why. And you guys learned a bit about hips and hip health. So hope you guys are having a good day. Like I said, happy Saturday. I'll try to make sure to reach out tomorrow and let you guys know what's going on. And Anyway, I'll talk at you later. Bye. Midnight. Bye.